A new country has once again joined the citizenship by investment game. There are more and more countries launching golden visas, launching residency by investment, and citizenship by investment programs, mostly outside of the Western countries, and they are very strategic. This one is Botswana in Africa. Now, I've talked bad about Africa. I've said that I don't want to invest in Africa. I don't want to get an African passport. This one excites me because they've never had a coup. It is a stable democracy. There's rule of law. There's not the crazy corruption that you see in other African countries. And it's also not just a far-flung island where you literally just get a passport. That is really all you get. No, it's a country that is going in the right direction. Botswana does rely on diamonds right now for most of their economy, so they want to diversify away from diamonds into selling citizenship. English is also the official language of Botswana, and they have strong institutions and overall a stable democratic country for now. As I say, in Africa and in Latin America and in some cases in Asia, like we saw in Nepal, things can change extremely quickly. But its track record is pretty solid. They've never had a military takeover, and the military stays in its lane. They usually don't harass citizens, they don't arrest citizens randomly. The passport itself is not that valuable. As you can see in the map right here, you pretty much have all of Southern Africa. African countries have talked about creating the African Union, which essentially would work similar to Mercosur or the European Union, although the European Union, in my opinion, a failed experiment. But the European Union is a lot more interconnected than Mercosur is or than ASEAN. But all these countries have visa-free access to each other, and maybe the African Union will work similarly to how Mercosur works, where a citizen of a Mercosur country can just move to another Mercosur country much easier than any other citizen. So a Paraguayan can move to Argentina much easier than an American, for example. A Botswanian might move to Namibia much easier, or to any other countries in the African Union. You also have Russia, for example, if that's interesting to you. You have some countries in Asia as well, Brazil and UK, although that's probably going to be removed because the UK removes access to all countries that sell their citizenship like this. Now, this is, as I said, a strategic investment. The price point is going to be around 120,000 US dollars, so it is relatively low. I would say it's very comparable to Vanuatu. The visa-free access, the reputation, although Vanuatu has a terrible reputation, I would say now that Botswana is actively selling its citizenship, it's also going to have a reputation of actively selling its citizenship. If the due diligence is strong, if they are careful on who gets the citizenship, no huge money launderers, no huge fraudsters, anything like that, then they can have a clean reputation. It is not at the price point of El Salvador, $1 million. It is not citizenship by merit. It is straight by investment. Anybody can do it. So I see them having some issues with mainly access to the West, but if you're getting this passport, you probably don't care about this. This is more, for example, for a passport collector. Somebody like me has already 4 passports, wants to get one more just to have it. Maybe in the future there's some sort of African Union. Maybe in the future I'm going to invest into Africa, into Kenya, into South Africa, although South Africa, it's a terrible situation right now. But maybe in the future I'm going to invest into one of these countries. You're basically betting on a long-term bet that this country remains a stable democratic country. Botswana, for now, is also not part of CARF, Crypto Asset Regulatory Framework, which the UAE has even joined, basically telling everybody what you have in crypto, where you have your crypto exchanges, who you transact with. They will not be part of this. So obviously, if you're a crypto investor, you might want some privacy with this citizenship, and they're also not part of CRS. So this is kind of I would say a hybrid between Vanuatu, Cambodia, Sierra Leone. So you still have that African element. I would pick this, in my opinion, better than Sierra Leone, although Sierra Leone is part of ECOWAS, if you want to be interested in that. I would say there's a passport collector, somebody that wants more privacy for CRS, for CARF, but also you're not probably African if you're getting the citizenship unless you are actually African. Maybe you're a Nigerian American or Kenyan American and you're thinking, oh, I'm American, let me get a Botswana passport, stable country. Could flip-flop, could change in the future, but no CRS, although with America, there's always FATCA, so always do everything legally. I have to emphasize that always follow the law. In the United States, you have to follow FATCA, you have to report everything to the IRS. In the EU, you have to report everything to your country and so on. I have to emphasize that. But let's say you're a non-tax resident in a high-tax country like Canada. You're living in the UAE on a Canadian passport and you have no obligations to Canada and you want even more privacy, then getting something like this makes sense. If you are not African or African American or of African descent, then obviously that will raise some red flags. Similar to how some Russian citizens get Turkish passports and then try to open bank accounts with this Turkish passport, it is very clear that they bought this. They are not Turkish, they bought a property and they got a Turkish passport. Vanuatu, for example, it is very clear that you're not from Vanuatu, you bought this. Now Botswana, you bought this. So I see this as not being that reliable of a second passport as something like in the Balkans or in Latin America, where there's no active citizenship by investment program. When there is an active citizenship by investment program and thousands of people get it, obviously the word goes around and banks, company regulators, AML regulators, all of these, they know that and they are careful on accepting this passport. You're probably not going to use this to travel unless you're going to go to Africa or just for regional travel. So this is more of just a plan EF later on, or more of you're never going to use this passport, maybe just as a long-term African investment. Now, this program is extremely early stage. It was basically announced a couple of days ago or a little bit over a week ago. And we don't know how the due diligence is going to look like. We don't know how the process is going to look like. We don't know if it's going to be more hassle than other straightforward citizenship by investment programs because they want to maintain their reputation as a stable country that doesn't sell their passport to anyone. So we will see. I think strategically, I would prefer it over something like Sao Tome and Principe. You're not going to get Portuguese citizenship easier through a Sao Tome and Principe passport. Let's discard that. Let's look at something like Botswana. I think it's a better option, but again, it's a fourth passport, fifth passport, ultimate plan B. A Russian that already has two other passports wants something on top of that just for Africa. Extremely long-term investment, passport collector, Chinese that needs another passport. It's going to be these very specific cases. One other important thing is that Botswana does not have a reputation of selling shady passport deals. Countries like Liberia, for example, have had huge scandals selling diplomatic passports, selling fake passports, selling passports overall. Even if you have a diplomatic passport from Liberia and you are not African American or you're not of African descent, they will not trust that diplomatic passport because they've had so many scandals. Botswana doesn't have a scandal. So if you do want to get some sort of African passport without that baggage, this could work. If you're interested in a second passport, a second country to call home, check out this video right here on the countries my wealthiest clients choose for more freedom, for their future, and for their family. Check it out right here.